order. Not have a roll call in the meeting, so we'll do a roll call.
Member Kaplan?
Here.
Member Hart? Member Ozog?
Here.
Member Rutland? Here. Chair Porter.
Here, we have a forum. Under remarks, I will defer on any remarks I have. We'll move on to public comment. We have one person who is going to be public this morning, and those who submit public comments online. Public comment is limited to 3 minutes per person, and will be limited to a total of 30 minutes of the meeting. No new testimony or evidence may be presented. We can always discuss testimony presented at the county board meeting. I think instead of moving on to the person who did take time to come here, Melanie Meyer, in favor of timekeeping. Melanie, please go.
Thank you. I think we can all agree that the county board has a lot of pressing issues to deal with, and we've seen overwhelming support for timekeeping. In June, this committee heard over 20 comments in favor, 2 opposed. Last month, the ZBA heard over 50 comments in favor, 1 opposed. There have been many public comments in support at the county board meeting. You've seen over 700 signatures from DuPage residents in support of this petition. The support is overwhelming. The opposition is almost non-existent. Come up with a recommendation that could property owners a clear and simple recommendation rather than 3 years ago, my family decided to attend we believe strongly in the conversation about where the food comes from and have many neighbors who have chickens already. And they're under the impression that they were allowed. The code is written in a way that doesn't expressly forbid hens, but reads that anything that is not specifically allowed is prohibited. This leads to a lot of confusion and the common misconception that hens are allowed. We were actually got a violation notice and petitioned for a variance that allowed us to use them for 4A. ZBA approved us 5-2, but this committee voted it down. Our backyard backs up to 8 different backyards from a county level. Because there was a public hearing, the HOA from that development that we are not a part of put together a campaign to block our petition. Coincidentally, our main opposer served on the zoning board and his attorney son, who represented him, clearly behind us the members of the board. We'll never know exactly why this the recommendation to the ZBA, but it is a clear illustration of how an HOA or neighbors who are opposed to hens can use their influence to prohibit a property owner from keeping them. I saw it firsthand. We also had to submit a practice survey that cost $400. Allow this by right. Minimize the bureaucracy. Minimize the dollars wasted by citizens on unnecessary survey plans. Minimize the tax dollars wasted by adding this extra step to a process that shouldn't be this complicated. I'd also like to address the memo circulated by the health department regarding Salmonella. Their concerns about the communication of CDC guidelines that recommend hand washing is absolutely important. The CDC also lists 18 standards that dog security and transmission humans. Does the county board also want to restrict homeowners from having dogs? This initiative is to allow homeowners in unincorporated areas. There are currently 15 municipalities in the state that allow pets. Did the health department also issue a memo to those municipalities? They have not had salmonella outbreaks. They communicated guidance of hand washing and hygiene while handling knives to minimize this risk. Again, simplify the process. Allow by right. Don't take that 3 years ago, I was told not to fight the county on this, that the board was anti-chicken, and that I was wasting my time. I'm not going anywhere. 700 residents
Thank you. Okay, now we have some online public comments, and we have about 25 minutes left to go through those.
This is from Dr. Evan Brown regarding the poultry ordinance input. This comment is in support of poultry keeping by right for all of unincorporated DuPage County. There are several reasons for my support of such a right. One, food security. Now more than ever, our families need reliable, healthy food that is easily accessible. Many families and areas in our country are without means to adequately address their nutritional needs. By allowing poultry keeping by right and throughout our unincorporated county, we can help families to be self-sustaining and receive adequate nutrition. Not only such a right is infringing on our, not allowing such a right is infringing on the ability for families to provide adequate nutrition. Two, cultural significance and social development. I, like many families throughout unincorporated DuPage County, desire to teach children about food security, responsibility, and industriousness through poultry husbandry. While my daughter is a member of a local 4-H club, she is still not allowed by current zoning restriction to have poultry on our property. I had the benefit of raising poultry when I was young, and it accounted for most of my nutritional intake for most of my youth, as well as helping to develop me into a successful citizen. Three, extremely low-risk activity. There have been rather alarmist claims and myths promoted by many regarding pathogens from poultry that are simply not based in reality or evident through scientific research. What scientific research does is say that as follows. Overall, the risk of pathogen transmission given backyard chicken keeping appears to be low and does not present a greater risk to the public's health compared with the keeping of other animals allowed, such as dogs and cats. And then she has a long citation to it. Raising chickens in the city backyards, the Public Health Role, Journal of Community Health, again, another long citation. Further, the CDC annual reports regarding Salmonella note that those are infected with Salmonella after having handled poultry are about the same number as those linked to onions, another site. Basic sanitary practices like washing hands after handling poultry and fresh eggs, as well as not kissing or licking poultry or unwashed eggs, nearly eliminates all pathogen transmission. Indeed, Salmonella outbreaks linked to poultry are extremely rare. The third largest city in America, Chicago, has always allowed poultry raising by right, as well as other livestock, and there have not been any apparent Salmonella outbreaks linked to poultry keeping. Four, freedom. Our nation and culture prides itself upon the ability to innovate and pick oneself up after being knocked down. We pride ourselves on a strong to-do attitude, the ability to solve our own problems. If the county persists in removing the ability for families to support themselves, they are going against our very culture and freedom. Poultry keeping should be by right, with very limited restrictions. Roosters are clearly an issue, as well as...
Mr. Hammond, I'm going to ask you to wrap up. You're about to exceed your 3 minutes on that one.
Goes on for about another quarter page.
Okay. All right, go ahead. Read the next one.
This is from Jacob Cinnamon Murphy, supporting responsible hen keeping by right in DuPage County. I was pleased to hear that there was a strong outpouring of support for hen keeping ahead of the most recent ZBA meeting. I have kept chickens on and off for a few years and find it an enjoyable and rewarding hobby. It is also a great lesson for my children in where food, eggs come from, and we have a responsibility to care for animals. Our hens have never caused any illness, nor have they produced excessive odor. In fact, my neighbor's dogs are quite a bit smellier. That said, I was disappointed that the members of the ZBA are recommending by conditional use rather than by right for the hen keeping ordinance. Conditional use adds significant costs and overhead to the county and its residents by requiring time and multiple hearings to approve any request for conditional use, even one that conforms to the requirements recommended by the ZBA. Much less effort and headache would be involved in allowing for use by right, paired with reasonable limits, no fewer than 2 and no more than 6 hens. And setback and height restrictions on the coop that match other outbuilding requirements in DuPage County. We are an equitable community and behooves us to provide a sensible ordinance that allows all those who would like responsibility to keep hens to do so. Sandy Kufal, unincorporated right to have hens. Raising backyard chickens is a joy that everyone should experience. It may be hard to work, but chicken keeping comes with countless benefits for a homeowner, their family, and even their neighbors. It's a labor of love that doesn't require a vast stretch of space or even a large backyard. In fact, chicken keeping has become popular in many urban and suburban spaces in DuPage County. The time for allowing backyard chickens in unincorporated areas is now. Our food supply is being strained. We need to provide our families with quality and nutritious food. Having chickens by right is the most feasible and least costly for the homeowners. Hens need to be considered as pets and therefore would not require special permits. We care about our community and our property. People would not do something that is detrimental to what we have worked years to have. Our property is ours and we have the right to enjoy it. Government needs to step back and let us live and take care of our families. A backyard flock won't just produce delicious eggs, it will also help with waste management, produce compost for a garden or potted plants, and act as a natural form of pest control. Chickens need a varied diet in order to live long, healthy, productive lives. They are not merely egg vending machines, but living, breathing, odd, kooky creatures and natural foragers that love and benefit from grass and fresh air just as much as their keepers, allowing a space for keeping hens healthy and happy. Precautions that need to be considered with chickens are the same as with any other pet animal. Keeping areas clean, washing hands before and after handling, feeding, cleaning. The CDC has laid out specific information. How to stay healthy around backyard poultry. Wash your hands. Wash your hands with soap and running water after touching.
I'm going to ask you to wrap up, please.
He has another 3/4 of a page.
Okay, thank you. Before we go on to any more, do we have, if you take a look, do we have any that are opposed other than the health department?
I think mine are all in favor.
Okay, Connor, do you have any that are opposed? I just want to make sure that there's a somewhat equitable distribution here. If there are any opposed, say they don't. Let's do a couple more in favor of it, and then we'll do and then we'll just go on until we conclude the 30-minute period.
Molly Sitkowski, I write to express my wholehearted support for the keeping of chickens in the unincorporated Yorkfield area. Martha Intereri, chickens in unincorporated DuPage County. As a 30-year resident of Yorkfield and unincorporated DuPage County, I fully support the residents' right to raise chickens on their property. There have been chickens in my neighborhood off and on over the years and have never caused a problem. A barking dog is noisier than chickens. There is a history of chicken ownership in Yorkfield that goes back to the 1940s at least. My neighbor had an old chicken coop still standing in the backyard, currently unoccupied. Having chickens is worthwhile activity, and eggs are produced that are fresher and healthier than any eggs bought in the grocery store. Please don't limit citizens from this wholesome experience. Thank you for listening. This one from Michael Wazorek. Chickens. I am in favor of the ability to own chickens legally on our property. There are endless benefits to this, and we deserve, as residents, to provide for our families in a more self-sustained manner, especially in the challenging and ever-evolving circumstances like the entire world is experiencing. I ask that you open this up to those responsible owners that are willing to abide by the standards set on safety and animal rights. Micaiah Bennett. Hen keeping, dear development committee members, I write to you today as a resident of unincorporated DuPage County to support support of hen keeping by right and not by permit. Out of May Day comments and petitions over the course of this discussion this year, there have been very few comments against hen keeping. Allowing hen keeping by right show residents supports efforts towards individual rights, food security, will do all this without increasing regulatory burdens at disadvantage and without increasing the workload of the county. I want to also address concerns over salmonella. Salmonella is potentially present in all animal waste and a large number of foods, and it is contracted from ingesting the bacteria from unwashed hands or uncooked food. If coops are properly cleaned and maintained and keepers wash hands after interacting with the coop hens, the risk of salmonella are low. I am more concerned with large-scale contamination events from industrial farms that sicken hundreds of consumers and cause multiple deaths from one factory. Expanding hen keeping by right will actually protect us from these events, which we can do very little. I want to thank the committee for taking up this important issue and urge you to recommend hen keeping by right. Sincerely, Dr. McKay Bennett. This one is from Scott Blair, hens by right. I have listened to many comments from previous meetings. Knowing DuPage County is a Republican stronghold, and being a Republican myself, I cannot justify the ZBA recommendation to restrict individual rights. What happened to the idea of deregulation and letting people take care of themselves? You cannot have it both ways. I support individual choice in having hens by right. Amy Field. Hen keeping by right. As a matter of personal freedom, property owners should be entitled to utilize their land in order to provide food for their family, including raising chickens in their backyards with practical poultry keeping methods. Chickens are safe addition to the backyard. There's a lot of information available on how to keep poultry safe. Just like owning a dog, there are things to know, learn, and to do. Simple hand washing after handling chickens or anything else in the yard is the best way to prevent any type of illness. I would like to see residents allowed to raise chickens by right without the additional hassle of requesting a permit, paying associated fees, and taking up the time and energy of board members as well as the homeowners. The point of having chickens is to make access to healthy protein more accessible. Thank you, Amy Field. I have two longer ones, if Connor maybe wants to go through some shorter ones.
Sure. Next comment's from Margaret Krishner. It's regarding a chicken issue. It says, I support to be able to own chickens by right. That concludes her comment. Next comments from Christo K-A-Y-A-T regarding chicken ownership. It states, I vote for having chickens in unincorporated Elmhurst Bethany forms to use for applications. That concludes comments. Next comments from Jeffrey Rice. It states, regarding keeping chickens, greetings. My position that anyone who lives in unincorporated DuPage County should not have to seek position property. In addition, I would point out that Chicago requires the city of Chicago people can legally house horses, goats, pigs, donkeys, cows, and sheep. Thank you for your attention. Next comments from Dawn Calcagno, C-A-L-C-A-G-N-O. It's regarding chickens by right. It states, I vote to keep chickens in our neighborhood. That concludes her comment. Next comments from Sally Rice. It's regarding keeping chickens in unincorporated DuPage County. It states, hello, I was extremely surprised to find out that DuPage County does not have a policy of allowing those who do not reside in any of the municipalities to keep and rear chickens or any other form of farm animals for that matter. I wish to state that I support this endeavor to allow at no cost and with no bureaucratic requirements the keeping of chickens or any other farm animals for that matter. My husband just showed me the regulations for keeping farm animals in Chicago. There aren't any. Why would DuPage be more restrictive than Chicago? Thanks for your attention. Sincerely, Sally Rice. Next from Irona Pawlowski, P-A-W-L-O-W-S-K-I. Chickens allowed in unincorporated DuPage County. I would like to see parenthetically by right. I'm looking to own a chicken coop myself. Sincerely, Irona Pawlowski. Comments from Sandy Brunel. Already submitted comment.
I have a way to
sorry, I remembered the last name. It's CAL regarding hens by right versus conditional.
Oh, we can't hear. I can't hear anything.
It's gone out completely. No.
Can't hear.
Let me see what IT can do.
That's
No.
a little better, but there's an annoying buzzing going on. It comes and goes, but it's real difficult to hear today. There's a constant
now?
hum.
Is this
Right,
better?
but there's still a constant hum going on.
I'll start that comment over. It's from Sandy Pufall. It's regarding hens by right versus conditional. The conditional use option does require a plot survey, which is on average $400. This is an ineffective solution. It's a waste of resources for property owners and of our tax dollars. Not to mention, the whole point of this is to allow a more cost-effective solution for property owners to have access to nutritious protein, but requiring people to spend that much on a survey plot makes it unattainable for most residents. It seems as if the right to have hens is being buried under bureaucratic manipulations. This requirement is a self-serving way to approve hens, but keep it from happening at the same time. With the public comments submitted for each meeting being by right, the 700+ petition signers, the 50+ positive comments submitted for the ZBA, how can this committee ignore the will of the people? Let us have the right to feed our families fresh protein and not be tethered to a supply chain who gives us 60 or more day-old eggs. Let's have the right to choose to raise hens organically with care and compassion. Let us teach children the responsibilities needed when raising hens. Please stop governing us into huge fees with conditions will put on us. Do the right thing and step back from over-regulating on a very simple issue. Next comments from Dana Van Sleet, D-A-N-S-L-E-E-T. It's regarding chickens. It says, I want to state my support of chickens to be allowed in the unincorporated DuPage area. Next comments from Andrew Van Gorp. It's regarding DuPage hen keeping. It states it's outrageous that in an era of increasing climate change fueled food insecurity that DuPage County would require residents to jump through extra hoops just to raise a few hens. DuPage County should be looking to Chicago's ordinance on residential hen keeping as an example in order to save DuPage families money in this difficult time. The pandemic has underlined how food insecure we really are. Remember the empty grocery store shelves. A plaintiff survey is not necessary to ensure that sensible hen keeping practices are taking place. There should be no fees attached to this beneficial activity, just as we don't charge people for an application to buy pets or dogs or cats. Isn't DuPage County calling themselves green and environmental? Prove it by ensuring hen keeping on our own property doesn't become a way for the county to shake us down for loose change. I have a comment from the DuPage County Health Department. It's regarding the text amendments on allowing hens as a conditional use. It states, as the development committee and the county board review the proposed reference text amendments to the zoning ordinance relative to hens, it is incumbent upon the DuPage County Health Department to share its concerns regarding the public health issues that have arisen throughout the country with backyard poultry. At the start of this month, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention announced that it was investigating 15 multi-state outbreaks of Salmonella infections linked to contact with poultry in backyard flocks. By the end of the month, 938 people have been infected with one of the outbreak strains of Salmonella in 48 states, including 34 outbreak-associated cases in Illinois residents. At least 151 people were hospitalized and 1 death was reported. The number of illnesses reported this year exceeds the number reported at the same time of the year in previous outbreaks linked to backyard flocks. The CDC's review of the evidence indicates that contact with backyard poultry such as hens is a likely source of the outbreaks. In interviews with 409 ill people, 74% or 303 individuals told investigators they had contact with backyard poultry. The DuPage County Health Department understands the need to balance property owners' rights and public health concerns. However, it is important to understand that the health issues arising from the poultry carrying germs can make people ill. 28% of those illnesses occurred in children that are younger than 5 years old. The germs that are prevalent in backyard poultry cause a variety of illnesses that range from minor skin infections to death. The county chooses to allow backyard hens as proposed. Homeowners should be made aware of the risk of serious ways to protect themselves from illnesses such as washing their hands after touching the hens or anything in the area that hens are kept. As always, the DuPage County Health Department is ready to assist you in any manner to protect the health of the DuPage County residents. The CDC has issued guidelines for owners of backyard poultry to provide better health measures to both adults and children who are exposed to backyard poultry. That concludes the Health Department's comment. I think Mr. Heyman has the remainder.
I have 2 comments for both a little bit on the longer side. First one is from William Pufel.
5 minutes total.
All right, first one is William Pufel, hen keeping unincorporated. living where we do in unincorporated DuPage County, we have a beautiful 2.5 acre property and we love it. Yes, our taxes are over $10,000, but the location can't be beat. Having said this, I do believe that we should have by right the ability to have hens. It is important now to have this right more than ever. We have struggled with food supply over the past few months. We have increased the size of our vegetable garden and are processing this food for future use. The next logical step is to have a source of protein. To have a source of protein, we can control by feeding organic and caring for in a humane and healthy way. With the surge in backyard chickens in local municipalities and counties, there has also been a large amount of misconceptions, falsehoods, and prejudices circulated around. There are 7 main concerns that always surface when backyard flocks are discussed. 1, chickens carry disease. Fact, keeping a sanitary coop, cleaning regularly, and washing hands after handling is necessary. The same is with any pet. The incidence of disease is more of a concern in commercial production where birds are raised in crowded environments. Monster-sized flocks in crowded conditions can cause stress and compromised immune systems. 2, chickens are too noisy. Fact, laying hens at their loudest have the same decibel level as human conversation, 60 to 70 decibels. Barking dogs have a decibel level of 85 to 122. 3, chicken smell. Fact, a 40-pound dog generates more solid waste than 10 chickens. The advantage of chicken waste is that it is a valuable high nitrogen fertilizer. Unlike cat and dog waste, chicken waste can be combined with yard and leaf waste to create compost. 4, chickens attract predators. Fact, predators and rodents already live around us. Chickens are hungry omnivores and will seek out and eat just about anything that moves, including ticks, fleas, mosquitoes, grasshoppers, bugs, slugs, and even mice. 5, property values will decrease. Fact, there is no documented case where a next door neighbor family flock has decreased the value of real estate. Local foods and living green is extremely popular. 6, coops are unattractive. Fact, small flock coop designs can be very charming and upscale as well as functional. Having hens by right needs to be our path forward. Homeowners need to have a cost-effective way to provide food for their families. Conditional use is a regulation with many cost-prohibitive restrictions, which will ultimately result in denying our right to have hens. Can the committee please step back from the conditional use and move forward by having by right? Government needs to let us have personal responsibility and to get out of people's way. And the last one was a very long one by Steve Leopoldo. Backyard chickens. I would like to pass along a note of support for backyard chickens in DuPage County. I feel that responsible and peaceful enjoyment of backyard chickens should not be restricted. Below, I will discuss what I feel are important considerations. Equal treatment. If I wanted to adopt a dog, I would not need permission from anyone to allow it to roam through my backyard. The dog would do what it does naturally, including along the fence line of my property. Outside of barking within the hours of 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. or being a dangerous/vicious animal, I'm unable to find restrictions like those being discussed for chickens. My research has found that an average dog will bark between 80 and 90 decibels in volume. Laying hens at their loudest will have about the same decibel level as human conversation, 60 to 70 decibels. Similarly, if I wanted to purchase a parrot, such as a cockatoo, 129 decibels, the code does not appear to address such animals. Through its ability to disturb the peace, greatly outmatches that hen's. If the county wishes to place restrictions on the keeping of roosters, which can crow up to 90 decibels, out of the public interest for quiet in the morning hours, that may be reasonable. But realize that some in DuPage County have significant areas of land where roosters should be permitted. If roosters are restricted, perhaps similar considerations should be made for large parrots when allowed outdoors. Public health. Regarding salmonella and droppings, residents face a challenge with the spreading of this bacteria among reptiles, turtles, lizards, snakes, amphibians, frogs and toads, and other types of birds, varieties of rodents, mice, hamsters, guinea pigs, and even dogs and cats. Returning to the dog example, it should be noted that a 40-pound dog, like a border collie, generates more solid waste than 10 average chickens. Inexperienced chicken owners need education about properly protecting themselves and their family to guard against infection, not reactionary regulations. Like any other creature, responsible ownership and education is critical for the health of the owner and their flock. Similarly, obtaining cooperation from our fellow citizens to wear facial coverings and washing hands has been a challenge during COVID-19. The county has not opted for draconian measures in dealing with a deadly human-spread pathogen in the public square. I would hope that in regard to the safekeeping of backyard flocks on private property, that the county would also opt for encouraging personal responsibility and education over heavy-handed regulation. In regard to public health and nuisance, I would also like to note that chickens are carnivores. They devour all kinds of bugs and pests from mosquitoes and ticks to slugs and even mice and snakes. They will also handle food
I ask
scripts.
you to wrap up, Mr. Henry.
He has another page left.
Okay, well, I think we get. See his opinion, okay. That concludes the public comment. Thank you all, in person and online. Moving on, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes of August 4th, 2020.
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second. Any corrections, additions, deletions?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I wanted to add that there was not a quorum at the county building. It stated that we did not have a quorum, and I think we did, but we didn't have a quorum in person.
Okay.
I don't know if that matters, but I think that we did have the quorum, so we were able to.
In the meeting wouldn't have counted, but yes, thank you.
Right, just to specify. Okay, thank you.
All right, with that addition, any other additions or corrections? Okay, roll call, please.
Member Chaplin,
Aye.
Member Covert,
Minutes.
oh, aye. Member Hart,
Aye.
Member Ozog,
Aye.
Rutledge, aye. Chair Tornatori,
Aye. And the minutes are approved. Moving on to regulatory, I'll entertain a motion to approve a special event permit SE 2-20 to Wheaton Bible Church to approve a permit for an outdoor prayer meeting.
So moved, Chaplain.
Second.
Motion and a second by Member Rutledge. Any discussion, questions?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Member Rosa.
Hi. I wanted to know if there was any comment from any of the surrounding neighbors. I know it's pretty large area where they're going to be, but was there any comment?
No, I've been reliably assured that there was none.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, discussion? Roll call, please.
Member Chaplin,
Aye.
Member Covert, aye. Member Hart,
Aye.
Member Ozog,
Aye.
Member Rutledge, aye. Chair Tornatori,
Aye. And the permit is granted, the motion carries. Moving on to, I'll entertain a motion to approve DCO 53-20 ordinance Z1983 Carlos. This is the zoning board of appeals recommendation to deny a rezoning from R3 residential to O office. This was a denial 7-0 at the ZBA. I'll entertain a motion to approve this, as all of our motions are made in the affirmative.
I'll move.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
There's a
Ozog.
motion and a second to approve this, meaning that a vote yes or aye would be to approve it and be opposite of what the zoning board of appeals would have done. Any discussion, questions?
Yeah,
Member Rutledge.
thank you, Chairman. Paul, how much residential is right around, adjacent to this property? And according to everything I looked at, it said that there was commercial property directly across the street. So I guess I want to know why the zoning turned this down if they're only using their property as office.
So the property is surrounded by, on the north side of the street, all residential single-family homes. On the south side of the street, you've got non-residential use. But on the north side of the street, it's all single-family residential. The reason the Zoning Board of Appeals recommended to deny is that the petitioner just didn't prove his case. There's a legal standard that the petitioner has to present in terms of why the property should be redeveloped the way they're proposing, and the petitioner didn't hit on any of the key factors that are required for the Zoning Board of Appeals to make a recommendation to approve. They basically came in and said, we'd like to do this, but they didn't have any support as how the use would impact the adjacent properties or roadways, which is the burden to the petitioner.
If we deny this, could they come back again to meet that burden?
Yes.
Member Ozog, then.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This question is for Paul. It looks like they are to the east and to the west, there are residential homes, and it seems like it's kind of the entryway into the subdivision behind. So this is residential. Then across you have the thousands of lanes of North Avenue. The other thing I wanted to clarify, so it seems like this is much more residential than commercial, obviously. But my other question is, I just want to clarify what we're going to be voting for. We're going to an affirmative vote is to vote against the findings of the zoning ZBA.
That's correct.
Okay, so if we support the ZBA, we would vote no.
Correct.
Thank you.
Sure. Member Colbert.
Oh, I have a question. So this
You
petition,
first speak, absolutely.
this petitioner is trying to build additional office space in this home office. Is that
Correct.
correct? And how big is this office going to be?
I believe the addition was going to be around 1,000 square feet.
Okay.
One of the key takeaways from this is that this piece of property is on North Avenue, and it takes direct access to North Avenue. The county has a code that allows this single-family residential property to be used as a home office. You don't even have to live there. It's called a principal arterial office use. It doesn't allow, however, for you to add on to the property or to make any additions to it. So this property owner has been using it as a home principal arterial office, and he wants to make the addition now. The addition would substantially add to the size of the building and also bring more parking needs to the property as well. And I believe the total increase would be about 1,000 square feet.
Are they hiring more employees where they would be bringing in?
Yes.
Okay, so this would negatively or adversely affect the property values in the residential area, or just attract more people to this home?
Both likely, yes. And one of the burdens for proving up a rezoning is to show how there is going to be an impact on adjacent properties and what the impact of going from residential to office would be on adjacent properties, whether it would be positive or negative. And this petitioner offered no evidence for or against. He didn't even present one of those LaSalle standards to the ZBA.
Okay, so this would have substantial adverse effects.
Well, we don't know because there was no presentation by the petitioner as to what the impacts would be on adjacent properties. And that was one of the dilemmas for the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments regarding this issue? Okay, we have a motion and a second. An aye vote would be to overturn the Zoning Board of Appeals decision. A no vote would be to affirm it. Call the roll, please.
Member Chaplin?
No.
Member Colbert? No. Member Hart?
No.
Member Ozog?
No.
Member Rutledge?
Aye.
Chair Tornatori?
No. And the motion fails. Moving on to action item C, I'll entertain a motion to approve T-1-20, a text amendment to the DuPage County zoning ordinance to add to all single-family residential sections language relative to conditional use, the ability to have hens on a property by conditional use approval. Motion by member Rutledge. Is there a second?
Second, Chaplin.
Okay, member Chaplin has a second. Paul, do you want to summarize as best you can what the conditional uses are that have been given to us in the exhibit that would allow hens on properties, please?
So the zoning board of appeals considered all of the concepts that the county development committee sent to the development committee, or to the zoning board of appeals for consideration. The zoning board of appeals recommended the concept of allowing hens on the property as a conditional use. In addition to the conditional use, it would be allowed as conditional use in all single-family residential zoning districts. That's R1, 2, 3, and 4, which are single-family residential zoning districts only, no multifamily zoning districts. In addition, it would allow them by conditional use to have not more than 4 hens on the property. They would have to be enclosed in an area, either in a chicken coop or fenced-in area, where that area would be located behind the front wall of the house and would be 30 feet from all property lines, whether it be corner side, or rear property lines. So that's what the zoning board of appeals recommended. The conditional use would require a public hearing before the zoning board of appeals or the zoning hearing officer. The zoning hearing officer or the zoning board of appeals would make a recommendation to the full development committee, which would then make a recommendation to the full county board. The reason they chose that, based on all the evidence that was submitted by staff and also by all the comments that were submitted by the public, is the zoning board of appeals was concerned that these animals are not pets, and therefore didn't want to put them into the pet category. They were indeed farm animals that would be, in theory, raised on a single-family residential property, hence the need for the containment and the distance requirements from adjacent properties. They were also concerned about the ability for adjacent neighbors to have a say in some of the concerns that they might have, and also the ability to put conditions on a particular piece of property depending on the size, the location. Unincorporated area has properties that are adjacent to incorporated areas, so that would also give incorporated areas, both residents in those areas and municipalities, the ability to weigh in on a specific, site-specific location for hens, as opposed to having the ability to have hens as of right without any of the neighbors to where those hens would be located, or the municipalities to where those hens would be located, having a say in the matter. So that's why the zoning board of appeals chose the conditional use route.
Just a more procedural question. We currently have in our zoning code the ability through certain types of 4-H applications and otherwise to have hens. Does any of this eliminate that, or is this in addition to what we currently have?
This would be in addition to what we currently have. And what we currently have, to be clear, is that if you have a piece of property that is over 40,000 square feet in size, you have the ability to engage in a 4-H project. That would require you to go to the local 4-H organization, get it certified as a 4-H project, and then bring that back to the county. As part of that process, we also require that those 4-H projects be located behind the front wall of the house and meet the setback requirements, 30-foot setback requirements. That would be exclusive, mutually exclusive from what we're proposing, that would still be on the books.
Okay, thank you. All right, questions, comments on the row?
Thank you, Chairman. I have several questions for you, Paul. I am the one that's advancing this initiative. And with the chairman's blessing, I do have a statement I'd like to read as well. But Paul, in the information that we received, there isn't any detail about what a permit fee would be for this.
So a couple of things. All conditional uses right now for accessory type activities would require a permit fee of $150. So that would be the application fee. In addition to that application fee, we would require a current survey of the property and also site plan showing where the activity was going to occur. That would be no different than applying for a building permit. If you wanted to put a chicken coop on your property, we'd have to have a survey and site plan showing the location of the chicken coop. So that's not going to be any different for the zoning process. And the entire process would take anywhere between 45 and 60 days to go through. In theory, the way we have our zoning board of appeals and zoning hearing officer program set up right now. And that's to meet the legal requirements of 15-day public notice in the local newspaper, and then getting it through to the zoning board of appeals or ZHO, development committee, and county board.
Okay.
Can I just point out, I just want to let everybody know that we did have and do have on the agenda the budget presentation from Building and Zoning. It appears that we're not going to get to that this afternoon, but we also have an 11:30 strategic planning meeting, which has got some significance to it as well. So we have 15 minutes. If we want to get this done today, I would just ask you to make your questions brief, your comments as brief as possible. If you don't get this done by 11:25 or 11:28 for a vote, then we're just going to have to recess this to the next meeting and take the vote done. Okay, so go ahead, Member Rella.
Thank you, Chairman. So my other question is, you gave us a spreadsheet of what other communities are allowing. Are any of those, if you recall, conditional as opposed to by right?
There are no conditional or special use in the municipalities. There are 2 municipalities that require permits. This would not be a permit requirement. This would be a conditional use requirement.
And then my last question is, what happens to the people who are scofflaws that are already in possession of chickens? I think it's unrealistic to think that they're going to come forward if their expense is going to be $550 to be within the law that we've let them get away with for all these years.
Well, to be clear, anytime we receive a complaint about someone having chickens on their property, we issue a violation notice. So those people that we're aware of, they've received violation notices and taken them through our process. In terms of the cost, the cost could be remedied by, in terms of the application fee, we could set a different application fee for this type of use. In terms of the surveys and site plans, we have this issue come up on all of our zoning cases, and we have it come up oftentimes with our building permits as well. We have the ability to provide a survey if we have one in our records to the property owner. That's certainly something that we can do. And once again, even if chickens were as of right, they'd have to get building permits for their chicken coops, which would require surveys and site plans anyway.
And then in the last year, how many citations have you had for people that
We've got approximately 10.
And Chairman, I'll quickly go through my statement. I think this is an important issue, and so if you would indulge me, I'd appreciate it with the permission. I hope that we're close to sensible rules that allow our citizens to be able to provide for their families through the backyard hen keeping. More and more people are realizing that food locally sourced is better for our environment. Some might think of chickens as pets, but I think they present a local solution to food insecurity. They help people become more self-sustaining and bring them closer to their home communities. At this time, people want to grow food in their own backyard. Hens provide safer, more nutritious eggs. I'm going to try to summarize. They can help alleviate the challenges to our food supply and distribution to virus hotspots. Food pricing's already spiked, and backyard hens can provide needed protein to a family's diet. Communities want this. We've had almost 700 positive comments to allow this. All were overwhelmingly in favor, very few cited against. In 2015, 93% of 150 large urban cities across the US allowed hens. In the Chicago area, DuPage is the only county that doesn't allow this, and even Cook doesn't limit the number of hens allowed. Yet Bensonville, Burr Ridge, Downers Grove, Naperville, St. Charles, Villa Park, Warrenville, Wayne, Westmont, as well as others all do. I spoke with a couple of officials from those municipalities who said the complaints have been few. Already record unemployment means that many in our communities are turning to food banks and local charitable food giveaways. People are hungry, and this could help in a small way. Hunger in DuPage in 2018 was 62,000 people, with 14,000 being children, and I can only imagine what those numbers are today. Regarding the concerns raised by the health department regarding Salmonella, I beg to differ with the chairman. I did not see anything in the report saying that they were not recommending this, only the risks that would be involved. And the numbers that they reported don't really give a clear picture of instances involving backyard hen versus commercial factories. And our own animal services report that all animals can transmit Salmonella, but they have had no cases of Salmonella in their facility. It's typically a food poisoning and results from improperly prepared food. Just last week, there was an outbreak tied to red onions. Commercial producers can also be a source of salmonella. I welcome the opportunity to work with the health department to develop information to help people set up their coops and food best practices to avoid this pathogen. In all of the response, I'd like to propose a motion to adopt a description for an ordinance by right. Set all the requirements that you want, but ticket people not abiding by those, rather than make them jump through hoops to get through the process. Cost involved class survey. During a time when additional pandemic assistance has come to an end, we should do our best to make this affordable. I'd like to see the number of hens allowed raised to 5. My army of supporters tell me that when you order chicks, they come in 5 packs. I'd also like to see the setbacks reduced to 25 feet, which would allow more properties the ability to raise hens. The setback, if you live in Burr Ridge, is only 10 feet from the rear property line. I don't think a 5% or 5-foot reduction would hurt us. And to set up whatever requirements you'd like, but to find people where there are problems instead of making them jump through regulatory and financial hoops. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Thank you, Member Rutledge. Well, that was more than a statement. There was an amendment also to, so I don't know if you want to make that formal. We have a motion and a second based on the agenda that we have. Are you making a formal amendment to what we have before us right now, Member Rutledge?
I am.
Okay, is there a second?
Second, Chaplain.
There's a motion and a second. Essentially, what you want to do is, or what I believe the amendment to be, would be to make the hens a matter of right. And Paul, I'm going to defer to you as to the procedural aspects of this. I know we've been able to do some things that have been sometimes in contravention of the Zoning Board of Appeals before, but what's your thoughts?
So you may recall that we published multiple concepts. So there was a public hearing on all of the concepts. And one of those concepts was to allow having hens on your property by right with some standard requirements such as not more than 4 hens and then setback requirements. So if the board wanted to choose one of those concepts, they certainly could, because we've already published and vetted them in the public hearing process. So you could do that.
So we have a motion and a second to amend item C. You mind if I summarize? To essentially make the, let's go through the specifics, because you hit us with a lot of stuff there, Sheila. So the number of hens would be from 4 to 5. It would be a matter of right. Talking about reducing the setback requirement. What did I?
25 feet instead of 30.
25 instead of 30, and so that there would be would there be an application fee? People would still have to go through, or would not have to go through any process to do this?
So right now,
other than building a chicken coop, because you got to get a permit when you put a shed on your property. So.
Correct. So for instance, right now I'm hearing that it would be as of right, 5, not more than 5 hens, and the setback requirements would be behind the front wall of the house and 25 feet from all property lines. I didn't hear a provision that they needed to be enclosed.
Any of the existing enclosed that you had with the conditional right, but the only thing I'm changing is the by right, the setback, and the number of hens. All of those other conditions would still apply.
So they'd have to be enclosed. So the enclosure, so that everything would be as by right. So the only thing that, the only involvement that a property owner would have with the county is that whatever their enclosure was going to be, whether it's going to be a fence or a chicken coop, those 2 items are considered structures, and you'd have to get a building permit for those. So you'd have to apply for a building permit for a fence or a chicken coop.
And the other thing I wouldn't have an objection to is a recommendation for what happens if, it becomes a nuisance that, neighbors are complaining about noise or dirty coops or things like that. I'm not opposed to a solution for neighbors that are going to have issues with that.
So we have a noise ordinance that deals with decibel levels. Whether there was a smell issue or an odor issue, we would work with our environmental staff to deal with that, and that could rise to a level of an IEPA issue. There are currently regulations on the books that would deal with noise and any effluent
We're already
issues.
taken care of.
So this would be a fence or a structure?
Well,
You would not have to have a coop?
anything that a property owner would use to meet the enclosure requirement. So an enclosure could be a fence or a chicken coop or both. Both of those items would require a building permit, so you'd have to get a building permit from the county. And as part of so that would be really the only interaction. In terms of the enforcement, if we get a complaint, we go out to check to make sure that they met the setback requirements, didn't have more than 5 hens, and were enclosed either in a fenced-in area or a chicken coop.
Okay. Okay, so we have a motion and a second to an amendment to item C with the, everybody understand who's on Zoom, what we got those, basically those were the changes. Any discussion, questions, comments regarding the amended motion? Member Chaplin.
Thank you, Chairman. Just for clarity, because it's a little bit hard to hear. So the application fee would go away, so it'd be much more cost friendly. Is that correct? We wouldn't have that $150 application fee and all those other fees. Is that correct? With the application fee, that would be gone, right?
In theory, the only fee that would be gone would be the zoning application fee, which is $150.
Okay.
The other attendant fees would still be there in the sense that they'd have to apply for a building permit. They still have to provide us with a survey and a site plan, whatever those costs are to the property owner. And then it would also include the building permit fee for the structure, for the fence or the chicken coop.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thanks, great, thank you.
I'm sorry? Okay, any other?
Member Ozak had a question, but she's not on the street.
Not on, so. Okay.
I'm good, Mr. Chairman. I'm good.
Member Ozak, we have 2 minutes.
I'm good, thanks.
Go ahead.
Said she was good.
Oh, I'm sorry, okay.
I don't have anything. Thank you. I'm good.
All right. Any other questions or comments to the amended motion? Okay, so we have a motion and a second to amend item C as has been set forth and we have discussed. Welcome. Yes.
Just real quick, the state's attorney's office, state attorney had a remark, and just to be clear, this is not more than 5 hens, and we'll be putting the term hens in the ordinance. Excellent.
Okay, so everybody understands, we're clear? Okay. We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Member Chaplin?
Aye.
Member Colbert? Aye. Member Hart?
Aye.
Member Ozak?
Aye.
Member Rutledge?
Aye.
Chair Tornatori?
No. And the motion carries as amended. Item D, discussion, the building and zoning budget. Sorry, Jim, but we're going to put you on the next meeting. Sorry about that, but we'll give you the time at that point. Do we have any old business? Yes, member to start.
Thank you, Chairman Tornatori. I just wanted to note that I see that the budget presentation was supposed to be today. Thankfully, it's not because I did not receive the building and zoning budget. So if I can have an email to me, that would be fantastic.
Did you send it to all of the board members? Okay, we'll get it to you, Jim.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything under new business? New business. There being no new business, without objection, we're adjourned. Thank you.